steady. How are you? There are many faces or facets of Lindisfarne. There's the past face and the present face. There's the closed face and the open face. Above all, there's a private face and the public face. It's really two different islands almost, Lindisfarne. There's the downright geographical entity shown on the tourist maps as Lindisfarne, just off the northeastern coast of England. And then there's its other, much more elusive persona as Holy Isle. And these two personas are kept separate by the tide, which islands a place twice a day. When the tide is open, as they say hereabouts, then it becomes very public indeed. But when it's closed, when the tide is in and the boats are riding high in the harbour, then it becomes private again. And in the first of these two programs on Lindisfarne, the Cradle Island, it's the private face that I want to discover, the Holy Isle, in terms of a private community with a past going about its very present business.
I take the wagon if the tide's higher, just to pick up the post and the mail and the papers, and we can manage to get across maybe half an hour sooner than we would with the car.
At the tail end of a tide, the island postman, Dick Patterson, gets a day off to an early start.
We'll get back to the post office, and then there's about 110, 120 houses to sort out for and deliver, and this usually takes about 2 hours.
The vicar's up early too, the Reverend Dennis Bill.
There is something quite extraordinary about this island. I don't think it's just that it's an island, but it's because it's an island that's been sanctified by holy people. Whatever their level of religious consciousness, those who live here and belong to the island community feel this time and time again. So the island has the most tremendous pull on its own people.
Farming and fishing are the traditional mainstays of life on Lindisfarne. They give the island and the islanders deep roots.
I love everything about it. It's so peaceful, so as soon as you come across the causeway you feel as if you're home, and that's what I like about it. Very relaxing, very, very nice. I love it.
There are only about 170 people living on Lindisfarne now. About half are islanders born and bred. The rest, like Ernie Evans, who retired here from the mainland, are passionately committed incomers. But behind the present lie the memories of countless islanders past, and especially of two men, two saints, two bishops of the early Celtic Church, whose presence seems to haunt the ruins of the priory and church, St. Aidan and St. Cuthbert.
When you first come to Lindisfarne, you're inexorably drawn to this place, these sombre, gaunt ruins of the priory and church, because they sum up so eloquently everything that there has to be said about time and the tide of human affairs down the stricken centuries. It was this place, in fact, that gave Lindisfarne its second name, Holy Isle, that name that comes so gently off the tongue. It was the Normans who built this place late in the 11th century, long after the early Celtic saints had gone to their rest. And they built it no doubt out of piety, but also, I think, out of a recognition of the value of pilgrimage, and not just a spiritual value either, because this was intended to be the new economic heart of the island, as well as a cultural and religious powerhouse to emulate the glories of the earlier church. And so the Normans built this place, and in honor of those early Celtic saints, they gave the island its second name, Insula Sacra, the Holy Isle. And so, in its way, it's remained to this day.
But it's the future, not the past, that concerns the islanders more, especially young parents like Dick and Pauline Patterson.
She's the youngest baby on the island. What sort of future do you see for her?
Oh, I don't know. Difficult to tell. If she likes the island as much as I do, and she stays here all her life, I think she'll be very happy, because I certainly have been.
What about schooling? Is it difficult for children on Lindisfarne?
Well, I think so. They're only on the island until they're 9, and then they have to go off into Berwick onto the mainland, because and I think 9-year-olds very young for them to go off. They stay there well until they leave school.
You can work out the rest of the story. Good girl.
Come with us. I want to go for a run, said dog.
When I came here, there were 18 children in school. Now we've dropped down to 9. We'll eventually, as the numbers stand at the moment, drop down to 2 or 3 children.
5.
Where are they going?
To the shop. Now, Keith, have you finished the stones? I'm going to have to come back up
When the
there.
children are 9, they have to leave us. Most of them go to Berwick. It is a very dramatic change for them.
What do they feel like?
They're going to a large school of hundreds of children, big buildings, something that all of them find quite difficult to cope with. Do you think the granny's going to let him in? Mm-hmm. She's going to let him in? Mm-hmm. It's the wicked wolf, mind.
From when I was at school, I've always wanted to be a farmer, and that's been my ambition. Farming on Holy Island is basically the same as the mainland, but just you have to consider the tides whenever you're going to a market or anything like that.
Jimmy Patterson has achieved his ambition to become a full-time farmer on the island. But what does the future hold for his children?
I've got 3 children. Martin, the eldest, is now 14. He'll certainly come onto the farm, so it's one problem we don't have to face when he leaves school. 2 girls will certainly have to leave the island, I think, to get work. It's difficult getting work on Holy Island. If I didn't have the farm, Martin would have to leave the island to go to the mainland for a job as well, and I wouldn't be happy about that. The same as I'm not really happy about the girls going, but it's a fact and we'll have to face up to it.
But some parents wouldn't mind their children leaving the island.
If they was brainy and had dedication, fair enough, they could go and get a good job. Fair enough, we can let them go away and get a job on the mainland, but...
But the kids get a better education now. Tell me, they never got on Holy Island, didn't they? I mean, they go with the Berwick. We was never away, never off this place till we was about 14. I mean, when I was a kid, if you got to Berwick on a Saturday, that was a treat. You used to save it for weeks. You go to Wilkes, pick winkles. They get away to Berwick for a day, half a day at the fair. Berwick Fair used to be the big day, didn't it?
That's right.
I mean, now you can go to Berwick any day you like.
The tide's right.
If the tide's right, yeah.
The tide's more important than time, because you have to know when it's high water, when it's low water, and when it's half tide.
At the middle of the causeway that links the island to the mainland, there's a refuge box on stilts that offers sanctuary to unwary folk who let themselves get trapped by the onrush of the tide. Beyond it lies true sanctuary, the sanctuary of Lindisfarne, a tiny crucible of history with its monuments of bygone times. Abandoned lime kilns from the industrial diligence of the Victorian age. A splendid fairy tale castle perched like an eagle on its eyrie on top of Beblow Crag. And at the heart of it, the harbour, lying snugly in an elbow of the land. For this is Cradle Island, and has been so since history began. It was here that the torch of Christianity was kindled 13 centuries ago, illumining the dark ages for the northern kingdoms of England.
Here on Lindisfarne and Holy Isle, it all began with an Irish-born monk called Aidan, a missionary bishop from that other Holy Isle, the island of Iona in the Hebrides. And in the year 635 AD, he was invited, coaxed, urged by the Northumbrian king Oswald to come here to spread the faith amongst the pagan Anglians and to found a little church and monastery, the first and mother church of Celtic Christianity in the north of England. And up here on the rocky, windswept Hugh, as they call it, He built a tiny, long-vanished wooden church and a little huddle of monastic cells. And in that austere and insignificant assemblage, there grew an inspired seminary of the soul, which lives on still in the annals of the spirit.
As far as I know, we're the only group living on the island, living and working together, specifically as a Christian group. In that sense, I suppose we must resemble the earlier monasteries here, but we are not in any way monastic. Our job is to discover what is right for Lindisfarne. We, being Christian, would say specifically, what does God want on Lindisfarne? To discover that, and then to grow as we discern the movement of the Spirit in our growth.
Dr. Kate Tristram runs a small church establishment called Marygate House, where parish groups from the mainland come to find themselves anew in prayer and community living.
In this house, Marygate House, it's got a special warmth about it, a feeling of community for me.
People I had never seen before came up to me, gave their hands to me and said, "Peace be with you," and some even kissed me. I didn't know them at all. And this is what's revived my inner spiritual
We as a team
sense.
are involved to a greater or lesser degree in the work programme of the groups of people who come to spend a weekend or a week here. And we hope that because of Marygate, people are growing, developing and taking away ideas that they had not had before.
In our life here, we have space, as it were, built in. We have time when we can be worshipping together at the church and time when we can be by ourselves, as well as a lot of time of forcibly living with other people and having people coming at you all the time. When I'm working in the kitchen and guests are coming in and asking for cups of coffee and wanting to talk about things. And, I'm trying to cook umpteen meals for 30 people and it all gets quite hectic. But then there's the space as well, and time to get away, and time to think, and to look around. And that's helped me grow.
But beyond the peaceful spaces of the island bays, there's a living to be earned on the harsher reaches of the sea, even if you're a woman. Keita Jenkinson is a deckhand hauling nets for salmon on the Lona M. To find a woman on board a fishing boat is strange enough, but that's not the only sea change in the island fishing industry.
Everything's more modern now. Even when I started, the gear's changed a lot and the boats has changed. And it's all polythene and man-made fibres now.
In them days, you used to have 4 and 5 men going aboard. There was more people at it. It could be less boats, but there was more people working, at the fishing.
Salmon in the spring and summer, crabs and lobsters for autumn and winter. 9 island boats still ply their trade. But the harvest now is thinner than it was a century ago, and the harbour now a quiet backwater.
And it used to be a busy harbour when the herring fleet was here, when the herring houses was on the go.
I think it was harder. I don't know if it was busy or not. I don't think they caught more fish then than what they catch now. But I think everything was harder then than what it is now.
In the heyday of the herring, there were 36 vessels operating out of Lindisfarne. Now the old boats have been upturned on the beach to serve as huts and sheds, and the big herring houses have been converted into holiday homes. But the pool of the sea never changes.
I don't know what it is. It's just born and bred into you.
Bred into you. The fish is bred into you.
He's born and bred into you.
His father, his grandfather were all fishermen, weren't they?
All fishermen.
What about your sons?
Well, that's where they're going to be. That's what they're going to do, fishermen and all. So I'm just getting this new boat, just on the spec of it. Well, I know they're going to go. That's all I think about. That's it's born into them and all.
Does that please you?
It does in one way and does in another. We've had hard times. It's not all rosy at the fishing. You have your good times and bad times. You get some bloody bad times in all mind. But It's a life, it's a job. Where will I get a job now? Coming here, we're leaving school, what jobs are they going to go to? It's only the fishing they could go to, unless they leave and go to the mainland.
It's nice in the summer when there's a lot of people and a lot of activities you can do. In the winter it's cold, sweat and it's boring.
I think I go to the fishing, go out there and catch lobsters and crabs. In the summer I go to salmon. It's where I've been brought up to go.
I'll move away when my parents go, or when I get a job somewhere else at the end of a university course. Because really there's only fishing or some tourist-related job here.
I like the people here. I find them, you know, very down to earth and very easy to get on with once they accept you. I do enjoy the life, but not full-time. I prefer it sort of on a holiday basis.
Well, actually there's more to do on an island because there's not much to do. Discos or something like that, but people will complain about it, you know, being noisy and that, so because all the old folk like it to be quiet on the island.
I suppose you get a rather narrow outlook on life if you live here all the time. It's a great place to grow up, but I've lived here all my life, 18 years, and I think I'm ready to move somewhere else.
But there are some islanders, like former lifeboatman Robin Henderson, now in his 70s, who have never found the island boring for a moment. He's always been fascinated by wild things ever since he was a boy. Anything that moves on land or sea or in the air. Especially his whirling, wheeling flocks of racing pigeons.
Pigeons are like wild birds, are gregarious. Not many people knows about pigeon racing, wild birds. We think we do, but we don't, you know. I've looked after thousands of strays in my time, cared for them. They put little notes on the leg, entered loft, cared for, tossed a certain date, request reply, Henderson Lightboat House, Holy Island. I get 99% letters or telephone answers back, say they've got home again, help them on the way.
Yet there's a seeming paradox. For Robin Henderson, wildlife lover and part-time nature warden, is also, like so many of the island men, a wildfowler, a man who goes out in winter deliberately to shoot ducks and geese.
Here at a day, born and new, to hunt for food. I remember my dad going out with him to Sandham Bay there, with a bucket full of little dunlins, sandalins, red shanks, anything for the pot. Made pies with them, you know. Not only my dad, most of the men did that.
But do you enjoy killing birds?
No, not really, but it's something you can't explain. The wild winter nights lying out under the moon, you know, and the wild geese and the ducks flying, and yet you want to shoot them if you can. It's just to bring them home, to say you've achieved something. There's a fascination of shooting under the moon. White fishy clouds passing over in the wild winter nights.
Just off the southern rim of Lindisfarne, there's an even smaller tidal island, hallowed now as Cuthbert's Isle. It's named after Lindisfarne's most widely venerated saint, inheritor of Aiden's Celtic church, Bishop Cuthbert. It offered Cuthbert solitude from all the busyness of monastery life, attended only by his favourite feathered friends, the eider ducks. And here on this scrap of an islet, crowned now by that memorial cross, he had a cell to which he'd retreat for meditation, not to escape the cares of the world, but as a means of coming closer to his God. But even this offshore seclusion wasn't secluded enough for Cuthbert, and later on he became a full-time hermit on one of the barren, rocky Farne Islands, away out in the sea. Total commitment, total self-denial. They did nothing by halves, these early saints of the heroic age of Celtic Christianity. And when he died, his manifest holiness was recognized,
and he was literally elevated to the sainthood. When his body was raised from the grave 11 years later, it was found to be incorrupt, probably mummified by embalming, as we would say nowadays in our skeptical, rationalizing way. But that miracle, as it was perceived in those days, was the start of the pilgrimages to his shrine on Lindisfarne.
I had one moment in my early days of association with the island before I came here to work and to live. One moment when it seemed to me that St. Aidan and St. Cuthbert spoke to me. The impact was such that I actually stood still as if a human voice had addressed me, although I know that there was no audible voice. And I had been thinking about them. I'd been here actually on a study weekend. And the only way I can explain it is put it into words and say that the two of them spoke to me and said, "We are alive, you know. You can talk to us if you want to."
But not everything is left to Providence. The menfolk of the village train as coastguards too, including the vicar.
Well, good evening, gentlemen. Tonight we've got a couple of paraflares to fire off. The first thing to remember is we do not prepare one of these inside. From time to time, these have gone off inside a lookout or CRE, and it's a very dangerous event. Now, we need a volunteer to fire the thing, and I think that should be our communications number.
Mostly rescue yachts at the summertime and sailing dinghies and divers, fishing boats and people off the causeway.
No, wait. Get a good position up there. Okay. Get the heel of your palm, see?
If the maroon went anybody in danger, the whole village will be there.
That's it, you're fine. Right. Okay, fire. Good firm grip with your left hand. That deployed all right? Good, well done.
Thank
Survived
you.
it.
I've been on the world, never seen a place like this before. Holy Island. I couldn't stop away. I was away for 40 years, but I was back for my holidays every year, you know, I could get back. Except during the war, I was away. But as soon as I could get back here, I'm here. Here to stay this time.
My children were born here. I just love the place. I wouldn't want to leave it, really.
But you're not an islander?
No. Came here in 1961. And I just love the place. I love the people. I love the atmosphere and everything else.
I think there's more money about now than what there was in our young days. I remember the old fishermen, sometimes they couldn't share 5 shillings a week for the week's wage. But now, I mean, it goes into a lot more money than that nowadays. I wouldn't say it's any happier than what it was in the olden days.
Very difficult to live anywhere else after having lived here. There is something special about this place, apart from its natural beauty.
The people of Holy Island always said the finest sight you could see were the poles and the sands. Nowhere in the British Isles like Holy Island.
And now the tide is going out. It's opening again, and the private face of Lindisfarne is about to go public. Now, in the old days, that was a signal for hosts of pilgrims to set off with their staves and sandalled feet across the plashy sands to come here to pay homage at the shrine of St. Cuthbert. And that line of poles behind me, 270 of them, marks the original Pilgrim's Way, all 3 miles of it. Now, pilgrimage was just the medieval equivalent of today's tourist trade. And today's tourists come the modern way, by car along the metalled causeway over the flooded sands. There are something like 500,000 of them every year now, pouring across from the mainland in wave after wave. And in our second programme on Lindisfarne, the Cradle Island, we'll be looking at how these modern pilgrims see Holy Isle now that holy days have become holidays.